Between 2016 and 2023, sections of Miami Beach sank more than 3 inches into the ground. And during those same years, developers broke ground on more luxury high-rises than any comparable period in the city's history. While the ground was measurably sinking, Miami was racing upward faster than ever. This is not how most American cities work. When Houston floods, it rethinks development. When Phoenix overheats, it adjusts growth. But Miami saw the warning signs and responded by building taller and denser than almost anywhere else in the country. Miami transformed into the 8th densest urban area in the United States in just decades, a concentration that took cities like San Francisco and Boston centuries to achieve. What makes this possible is that Miami operates on a completely different economic engine, powered by money flowing in from Latin America, Europe, and beyond. And it creates contradictions everywhere. Miami is statistically one of the most walkable cities in America, packed with towers and ground floor shops. Yet it is also one of the most car-dependent places you will visit, where pedestrians are killed at alarming rates. So how did Miami become a city where the solution to every problem is to build taller? Why does density not translate to walkability? And what happens when a place grows by ignoring every rule other American cities have followed for a century? The standard model for American urban growth is outward expansion. A central business district takes shape, highways push toward the edge, and low-density housing fills whatever land is available. It was the post-war formula from Phoenix to Atlanta to Dallas, driven by cheap land and planning rules that separated everything into zones. Miami tried that approach, but then it hit a wall. Unlike Houston or Dallas, which can sprawl indefinitely, Miami is geographically trapped with the county mandating that all growth must happen within existing city boundaries. So, in 2010, Miami threw out traditional planning rules entirely and replaced them with Miami 21, a system focused on walkability and mixed-use development. More importantly, it made development fast and predictable. If your project followed the rules, it was approved immediately without lengthy reviews or waiting months. That certainty drew developers with deep pockets. Between the year 2000 and 2020, Miami increased its housing by 43%, adding nearly half again as many homes in just 2 decades, with almost all of them rising vertically. Miami went from a mid-rise city to a vertical metropolis. Then in recent years, new rules turbocharged density around train stations, covering roughly half the city. Buildings once capped at 5 stories could now rise to 12, while buildings capped at 12 could shoot past 24. Parking requirements were also slashed by up to 80%. Miami had rejected sprawl and car-focused planning. On paper, it had become the kind of compact, walkable city that planning advocates dream about. The transformation was dramatic and swift, reshaping the skyline in ways that would have taken decades in other cities. But all of this raises a critical question. Developers do not build for local residents who need affordable housing. They build for whoever pays the most, and in Miami, the highest bidders are not local at all. So, who is all this density actually for? If you look at Miami's skyline, you are seeing a global investment portfolio rendered in concrete and glass, financed by capital flowing from every corner of the world. Florida is home to 20% of all foreign real estate purchases nationwide. Between August 2022 and July 2023, buyers from outside the United States purchased $12.6 billion worth of Florida real estate, roughly equivalent to the entire annual budget of a mid-sized country. More than 6 in 10 foreign buyers pay entirely in cash without any financing or dependence on American interest rates. When the Federal Reserve raises rates and construction slows elsewhere, Miami keeps building because the money comes from outside traditional financial constraints. Miami ranks as the 6th most important city in the world to ultra-wealthy individuals with assets exceeding $30 million. That is enough to buy a new Lamborghini every month for life. It is the #1 US market for ultra-wealthy second home buyers globally, and these purchasers are not looking for primary residences. They are seeking places to park wealth outside their home countries, treating Miami real estate as a financial safe haven. Between 49 and 52% of new tower sales in South Florida go to buyers from other countries. Developers build for money from Sao Paulo, Buenos Aires, Caracas, and Bogota, making Miami function as a financial safe haven for international capital. This creates a self-reinforcing loop. Foreign money flows reliably, so developers sell units before breaking ground. Units pre-sell consistently, so banks finance construction. Construction happens quickly under Miami 21, so more towers rise rapidly. More towers create investment opportunities, so more foreign buyers arrive and the cycle accelerates. This cost falls on local residents. Average rent stands at $2,385 monthly, second highest after San Francisco, and more than most Americans earn working full-time at minimum wage. Local residents must work 109 hours monthly, nearly 27 hours weekly, just to cover typical mortgage payments. The wealth gap is stark. White households have a typical net worth of around $107,000, while Cuban households have around $22,000, creating a 5-to-1 gap comparable to developing nations. So, Miami is building density funded by global wealth, priced for global wealth, and designed for people who do not live there. The city grows vertically, but residents cannot afford what is being built. But if Miami is the 8th densest urban area packed with towers and train lines, why does everyone still need a car? Miami has the Metro Rail, an elevated train system. It has the Metro Mover, a free automated train looping through downtown. It has Brightline connecting Miami to Orlando. It has bike lanes and a new 10-mile corridor beneath train tracks. On paper, Miami should be highly walkable. Yet 76.7% of work commutes involve driving alone, while only 3.82% use public transit. Florida ranks 3rd worst for pedestrian deaths. Roads often feel like highways, and sometimes they literally are. Miami has achieved the density that should support walkability, and it has invested in transit infrastructure. It even has climate-adapted architecture with wide overhangs, open-air passages, and courtyards assuming slow movement on foot in the heat. But the street network was never redesigned to match the density. The city added towers without rethinking roads. Major corridors have remained high-speed, multi-lane roads designed for suburban commuting. Crosswalks are scarce and intersections hostile. It all seems to say, if you are not in a car, you do not matter. 60% of Miami residents live near a transit stop, but only 6% live near frequent service. Most routes run every 20, 30, 40, or 60 minutes. If you need to transfer, a 10-minute drive becomes an hour-long transit journey. Miami built vertical density because it had no room to sprawl, but never committed to transportation infrastructure that density requires. It added hundreds of thousands of residents without adding subway lines, redesigning streets, or prioritizing buses. Different government levels also work against walkability. Miami Beach recently created a car-free promenade, but Miami-Dade County fought to reopen it to cars and won. The city wants to be urban while the county wants to preserve car access. Miami has the density of a global city with the car dependency of a suburb. It has towers like Hong Kong with pedestrian death rates like sprawling Sunbelt cities. But even if Miami solved transportation problems, a more fundamental issue remains. Can you build a dense, vertical city on ground that is literally collapsing under the weight? Miami is the most vulnerable city in the world to coastal flooding from sea level rise. The city sits on rock full of holes like a giant sponge. When sea levels rise and storm surges push water inland, traditional defenses like seawalls become useless. Water does not crash over barriers. It seeps up through the ground itself. Planners are bracing for 2 feet of sea level rise by 2060, roughly the height of a toddler. That is within the lifespan of buildings being constructed now. Towers going up today will still be standing when Miami deals with constant flooding as a permanent condition. Yet building continues. Between 2016 and 2023, sections of Miami Beach sank up to 8 centimeters, more than 3 inches in just 7 years. The cause is the buildings themselves. The weight of high-rises combined with construction vibration compresses and destabilizes rock layers beneath. This is the ultimate paradox. The city builds upward to avoid sprawling into vulnerable areas, but building upward destabilizes the ground beneath towers. The solution accelerates the problem. The people funding this growth are not concerned. High-end developers often sell towers immediately after completion, transferring long-term risk to condo associations and unit owners. One developer openly stated he hopes the worst impacts are far enough away that the market has 5 or 6 more business cycles left. Build, sell, and exit before crisis hits. The public sector is left holding the bill. Miami faces an estimated $3.8 billion in costs over the next 40 years just for stormwater and flood management, roughly the cost of building a dozen major sports stadiums. That does not include moving people or rebuilding infrastructure, just managing water. Miami cannot sprawl because of the Everglades, cannot stop building because foreign investors demand growth, and cannot stabilize the ground because growth itself is the destabilizing force. The city is running out of time and land, and the only response is to keep building taller. But the climate crisis is not just threatening infrastructure. It is transforming who gets to live in Miami at all. For most of Miami's history, elevation did not matter. Wealthy neighborhoods clustered along the coast for water views and beach access, while inland neighborhoods on higher ground were less desirable. Many higher elevation areas were historically segregated, becoming home to Black and immigrant communities systematically excluded from coastal development. Little Haiti sits about 10 feet above sea level. Liberty City sits at 12 feet. For decades, that elevation was irrelevant to investors wanting coastal access. Climate change flipped this equation entirely. Elevation suddenly became the most valuable asset. Neighborhoods neglected for generations are now in developer crosshairs looking for high ground. This is climate gentrification, displacement driven not by traditional amenities, but by anticipation of future flooding. Investors systematically buy properties in historically marginalized communities, betting that as sea levels rise, these neighborhoods will become the only safe places left. Displacement happens before floods arrive. Little Haiti is now the fastest changing neighborhood in South Florida for property values, with home values increasing 19% since 2016, even though nearly half of residents live below the poverty line. A massive development is being built on Little Haiti's high ground and openly marketed as a safe bet in an era of climate change, making the crisis itself part of the sales pitch. Liberty City faces similar pressure. Liberty Square, one of the oldest segregated public housing projects, was supposed to undergo non-displacement redevelopment. But when the project moved forward, only 5 families remained out of hundreds. The rest scattered using housing vouchers. Redevelopment became displacement by design. If sea levels rise by 40 inches, up to 56% of all households will experience climate displacement pressure. That could force 1 million people to move, creating one of the largest internal migrations in American history driven by environmental change. Public spending on flood protection is not flowing to vulnerable communities on high ground. It goes disproportionately to wealthy, low-lying coastal areas, with Miami Beach alone spending roughly $400 million on pumps and raised streets, initially focusing on areas connected to local officials. The people living on Miami's safest ground are being pushed out to make room for wealthier residents fleeing dangerous coastal ground. The climate crisis is rearranging who gets to stay. Miami rejected sprawl and embraced verticality, rewriting planning rules and opening itself to money from around the world. It built density without corresponding and created a skyline without underlying stability. Miami is a place where ground sinks as buildings rise, and where climate risk functions as both a threat and a business model. This is not a cautionary tale about what might happen someday. Miami is testing the limits of urban growth, climate adaptation, and inequality right now, and the rest of the country is watching closely. Because if Miami is the opposite of every American city, it might also be showing the future of many others. Miami built itself into a corner through geography and bold policy choices. And now it is building upward, hoping desperately that the ground beneath holds just a little longer.